You know, sometimes this lifestyle of keeping glass boxes full of water and trying to keep living things alive and thriving well, it can be a huge pain in the ass. This is especially true when you're an idiot like me that keeps big poop machines in a big tank like this one. This is a 360-gallon aquarium from Custom Aquariums, and it's my favorite tank I've ever had. It's 8 feet long, 2 feet deep, and 2 feet tall. What's that in centimeters? I don't know. That's what Google's for. I have 3 full-grown Oscars, which are a tiger, an albino tiger, and a red. 2 gold Severums named Gypsy and Danger, a common Plecostomus, and 3 bikers named Draco, Crab, and Goyle. I don't know why, but I haven't named the Oscars yet. I've had some good ideas though. It's hard to come up with 3 names that go together, especially when I've already used Draco, Crab, and Malfoy, and Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion. That was the names of my 3 silver arowanas that this tank started out with. Let me know what I should name them. Maybe it should be 3 more Jaeger names, 3 more Harry Potter characters, Clark, Jonathan, and Martha, Jor, Cal, and Lara. I could refer to them as the L's. I don't know, but I've had them for 5 years, and it's a shame they don't have names yet. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. When there's this many heavy hitters in a tank, keeping it looking good is never not going to be a challenge. Not only do they produce a ton of waste, but the bikers are always hanging out down at the substrate, and they're not graceful at all. When they decide they want to go from one spot to another, they don't just delicately ease their way over. No, they launch themselves up and swim 100 miles an hour before they plunge themselves down into the new spot. This sends a huge plume of debris flying everywhere, and they're constantly doing this, which means it's always going to look like a snowstorm in the tank. It's a constant battle, and if I'm being honest, it affects my quality of life. I make my living showing my aquariums on YouTube, and it's embarrassing that this tank always looks this way. I wish my tanks could always look perfect like Evan Rifkin's tanks on the Riffwaters channel. I don't know how he does it, but I think I should call him and find out what his secrets are. I've documented my struggles with this tank pretty regularly, and today is no different. Today is the next step in trying to get this thing under control, and once this is done, I'll only have one thing left to do, which is, well, add a couple of canister filters. I have a couple FX6s laying around, but somehow I've misplaced all the hoses for them, so they're just useless buckets at this point. Someday I'm going to order some new hoses and install 2 of them on here just to act as 2 giant sponge filters picking up that debris. Maybe I'm dragging my feet, or maybe I'm holding out as long as I can for Sicce to release their new canister that's supposed to be a direct competitor to the FX series. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But today, I'm going to do a massive cleaning on this thing and show you how I do that. Then I'm going to install 2 brand new Sicce synchro pumps in the sump to move more water and hopefully help keep this thing a little cleaner. You may recall a while back I put a water changing system in this tank to make my life easier. It's a beautiful system and works exactly how it's supposed to. To briefly explain the system, it's a Sicce Ultra Zero pump installed behind the tree stump that has a pipe running out of the building. I turn this pump on and it starts moving a bunch of water out of the tank super fast. Then I ran a supply line from the water heater straight to the tank to fill it up. If you want to see the video on this project, I'll put a card up in that top right corner or left or whatever corner it is. It's at the top. This system works great for taking water out and putting water back in, but it doesn't really do anything for the debris sitting on the substrate. For that, I use a 35-gallon Brute trash can on wheels and a siphon hose. It's not pretty, but it gets the job done. I decided to take the tree stump out entirely to be able to clean around the Ultra Zero, and I'm not sure if you can see it in the video, but this was a smart thing. There was a massive accumulation of waste all around the pump. I'm going to have to keep an eye on that for sure. Now for the fun part, or if I'm being honest with you, the least fun part of the project, and that's cleaning out the sump. Now let me be clear, it's not that it's hard work. It's actually pretty simple. It's the fact that I've got to crawl my big butt under there a bunch of times to get everything out. But this isn't something I have to do all the time, so I'm going to stop complaining and get on with it. I started out by using my other Ultra Zero with a garden hose attached to pump as much water out of the sump as possible. Yes, I have 2 Ultra Zeros, and yes, you should have one too. They do a lot of things and they're super versatile, and they're something I use on my maintenance every single time. Once the Ultra Zeros got out as much as possible, I switched to my shop vac. I was actually pretty happy because Lisa overflowed her goldfish tank the day before I did this project, and it conveniently left the shop vac in the fish house for me. Let me tell you something. If you're a fish keeper and you don't have a shop vac, I'm sorry, but you're doing this wrong. I've just given you 2 good reasons to have one laying around. One will potentially save serious damage to your house, and the other just makes your life a little bit easier when you're doing a project like this. Now let's talk about the part of the project that's going to spark a little controversy. I'll start off by saying yes, your eyes are not lying to you. I'm cleaning the sponges at the sink. Why do I do this? Isn't this breaking the biggest rule in fish keeping because the chlorinated water is going to kill off all the bacteria in the tank, causing it to crash? No. So here's the thing. Yes, it's a good practice to always use aquarium water to clean out your filter sponges or your sponge filters, but it's not completely necessary in situations like this. Let's look at it like this. We all know bacteria grows on surfaces, and sponges have a ton of surface area for the growth of bacteria, so we look at them as our main supply of beneficial bacteria. Well, this simply isn't true. Yes, there's a lot of bacteria in these sponges, and yes, the exposure to chlorine will in fact kill some of them off, but not all of it. If you look at how I'm doing this, I'm running the water from the faucet through the sponges really good, rinsing them out several times, and then moving on to the next one. I'm not letting them sit in chlorinated water for long periods of time. This quick hit of chlorine might deplete a little of the bacteria, but it's not going to completely rid the sponges of it. Plus, there's something else we're not talking about here, and that's all the other areas of my tank the bacteria is growing. What about the 3 inches of sand and fine gravel substrate I have? What about the biomedia in the trays in the sump? What about the huge amount of glass in the tank and walls on the sump? Bacteria grows on all surfaces, not just sponges, so I'm confident there's enough bacteria throughout the rest of the tank to be able to take a small hit and not crash the system. Plus there's this. I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. A little bit of bacteria being killed off in the sink is actually a good thing. Why? Well, think about it like this. What happens if you have a rotala plant that grows to 18 inches and you trim 10 inches off of it? Does that kill the plant? No. It actually helps the plant because now the stems that are left have more access to light and CO2, so it has the opposite effect. The plant actually grows better having some of that load taken off. Well, the bacteria is the same way. Yes, some of it'll die off, but what's left will continue to multiply, and before you know it, everything's back to normal and the tank never skipped a beat. Plus, the seamless sump comes with little ceramic balls to put into the trays. I didn't rinse those at all because they really don't need it. Long story short, I'm not worried about the bacteria in this tank. It's a big tank, it's well established, and it's going to be fine. Now, to add the new pumps. This tank has 2 returns, and I've always had 2 separate pumps running it, with the idea being if one ever goes down, the entire system isn't out. It's just not as much water moving through it. The pumps I had in there did a fine job keeping up with this beast of a tank for 5 years, but it was time for an upgrade. Plus, I did notice a dramatic slowdown in the gallons per hour going through them, so it was time to replace them whether I wanted to or not. I'm not going to talk about the brand of those pumps because they did fine, and I'm not unhappy with them. But it was time for an upgrade, and so I went with 2 Sicce Syncra pumps, and it was an excellent choice. Not only because Sicce makes the best pumps on Earth, and that's not even up for debate, but because these move a ton of water, have a 5-year warranty, and most importantly, they are dead nuts quiet. I've used a lot of pumps over the years, and these are by far the quietest I've ever used. Am I telling you all of this because I want you to go buy a Sicce pump? Well, you damn right I am, but here's the thing. I'm not trying to get you to buy them from me because I don't even sell them. I'm telling you, if you're in the market for a pump for your sump, these are the ones to get. Just please don't buy them on Amazon. Come on, let's protect the industry and buy them from an actual aquarium retailer, please. Side note, am I the only one that every time I hear pumps in the sump, I think of the MC Hammer song? Maybe I'm showing my age here, but just say it a few times. Pumps in the sump. Pumps in the sump. If you've heard the song from the 90s, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't know, the song's called Pumps in a Bump, and it was released in 1994, and I'm just going to say it. The video for that song left me scarred for life. Look up the video on YouTube if you don't know what I'm talking about, but for those of you who've seen it, if you're a Joe Average guy like me, you know. So here we are. Obviously, the last thing I had to do was fill it up, but I didn't show that because watching an aquarium fill up is about as exciting as watching paint dry, but here it is. This footage is actually about a week after doing this, and it's a dramatic difference. I'm not sure if it shows up on camera, but it's there. The water is much more crisp and is so much closer to the way I want it to be. Obviously, there's still a bit of debris floating around, and with the fish I keep, there's really no getting around that till I can get some canisters installed on there, but let's be honest, that probably still won't make it perfect. I've had to come to grips with the fact that this tank will never be perfect, just as I'll never have the same action if I'm thrusting my hips in a Speedo like Stanley Kirk-Burrell. Sometimes you've got to just work with what you've got and be happy with it, and embrace these facts of life. Plus, if I'm happy with it, the fish are happy with it, and my wife's happy with it, if you know what I mean, everything's going to be okay.